welcome to another edition of On the Gridiron, AYS On the Gridiron. We're here talking with a gentleman who I guess we could best describe him, being from Denver, as another one that got away. Chris Sanders, what's going on, mister?
I'm doing pretty good. It's good to be on your show and get to talk about some good things. And I actually miss Denver, Colorado. I haven't been there in a long, long time. Is the mountain still good? What else is going on down there?
It's 100 degrees today.
Ooh, I don't miss that humidity though.
Yep, it's 100 degrees. The mountains are still here. We still have no water.
Are you serious?
We're always in a drought. You know that.
No way.
Always in a drought. So Chris, bring us up to speed now. You're a young man who grew up out in, I want to say, Montbello. Is that correct?
Yes.
Talk a little bit about growing up in Montbello, Colorado.
It was difficult. You know, it's not that the place was difficult. I just went through a lot of trials and tribulations, kind of went through things and basically trying to find my identity. You know, and I went to Montbello. The first year I went there, I played football and I ran track, but I wasn't good at that time. So as I was going through my trials and tribulations, I had coaches like a guy named Don Gatewood and a guy named Coach Hall that really mentored me and helped me be the man that I am today. So those are the things that I miss, and those are the things that I'm glad that I was a part of.
And so coming out of high school, you not only you were an outstanding football player, but you were, like you mentioned, you were a track guy as well. You still have some records that are on the books right here and at Ohio State. I mean, come on, man.
You see that big old smile right there that got a dimple? You just made me smile by just saying that. You know, I look at that record. It's from Denver, Colorado. It's the long jump record. It still stands 24/7. That record means a lot to me, and I'm gonna tell you why. It's because my ninth grade year, I was wrestling. I actually wrestled too, but I came off a knee injury, and I didn't really have a chance to run track until the end of the season. So I get in, and everybody's talking about how fast I was and how quick I was. So I get in the race, and I take dead last. And I remember sitting on the bus, and I'm sitting there crying, and everybody's laughing at me. Like, oh, I thought this guy could run this and that. Don Gatewood walked through everybody on the bus, and he took me off the bus, and he looked at me. He said this, I'll never forget. He said, if you stay with it, you're going to be a state champion one day. And 3 years later, I didn't just win the 100. I didn't just win the 200. I won the long jump, and the long jump record still stands. That's why that record means so much to me.
And the record couldn't be any more easy. It couldn't be easily remembered. 24/7. Come on, man.
24/7. And here's a guy that when he struggled his first year, you know, running track wasn't good because I came off a knee injury, to a guy winning the state championship. So that's why that record means so much to me. And that's the reason why every time I think about it, I get so emotional, because all the trials and tribulations that I went to get that record. And the funny thing about it is I did it in a regional championship. I jumped 24/7, actually scratched a 25-footer. So, you know, that's why, you know, every time I go back and look at that record, you know, I check on it to make sure it's still there, because I never want nobody to break that record. But it just brings back so many memories that when you go through trials and tribulations and when you go through obstacles, it's an opportunity to do some great things. And that's why I love that record.
Well, you talk about trials and tribulations and obstacles. What were some of the things that were in your way of, or what you perceived were in your way of becoming who you have become today?
You know, just watching my mom struggle, just watching her go through 3 jobs and, you know, trying to find the next meal I'm going to eat, to try to find the next meal that I was going to try to have. And, you know, just going through those things and having to wear the same clothes every day and getting laughed at and, you know, things like that really hurt. And I was just trying to find my way, trying to find my identity. And, you know, situation where my mom was a single mother. She went through all that. She worked 3 jobs and, you know, just trying to find my way. You know, I didn't know how to find my way. So I hung on to different coaches and I hung on to sports to really start to mold me into my identity. Like, I remember, it's a funny story. Coach Hall, he was my wrestling coach. And I remember I was wrestling my ninth grade year, and we had a wrestling meet that day, and I didn't show up. And the next day I'm just walling into practice, and he screams at me. He said, "Don't you ever miss a practice. Don't you ever do that, because there's so many people depending on you." So I had to learn at that moment that even if I'm sick and even though it feel like I can't make it, I got to show up because there's people depending on me. So little things like that were defining me into the man that I am. And then we have the situation with Don Gatewood. I love that coach. Every time I talk about I love him, is he didn't let me quit. I remember a story where I didn't have any shoes, some track shoes to run, and I had my wrestling shoes. and we were doing time trials in the 400, and he made me run the 400 in track shoes. So what he taught me is don't let your limitations limit you from doing great things.
Wow.
And that's why I started to mold me and started to create the greatness in me. Why? Because there was a time that I wasn't great. There was a time that I wanted to give up. There was a time that I said, I don't want to do this. But there were men that mentored me and said, Chris, you can do it if you just keep persevering.
Yeah. And when you say your mom, single mom, dad just not in the picture, dad kind of in the picture.
Yeah. I mean, it was tough. My dad left in the 3rd grade, and I to this day I respect my dad. I love my dad. We all make mistakes, and my dad passed away actually about 6 or 7 months ago, and he just came in sporadically. But at the end of the day, I still forgive my dad and I love him, because he did what he thought was right, and at the end of the day, he's still my dad. I never ever want to disrespect my dad. I never want to put him down, but it was tough not having him there because I wanted my dad to teach me the things that I didn't know, how to change a tire, how to mow the grass, how to respect women, all these things that I didn't know that I wish I was taught. But as later on in my life, I had different mentors in my life to really teach me the things that I need to know to become a man. So that's the one thing I miss about my dad, because there's a lot of things that I didn't know. I'm still learning how to barbecue. My dad could really barbecue. I wish he would have taught me those fundamentals of doing those things. So even though he wasn't there, we still had a relationship down the road who I love.
That's incredible. Yeah. And people don't realize, all the pressures that are on young people. I mean,
yeah.
You talk about that, and you're lucky enough to find coaches, because coaches are critical in kids development as young men, young women. They're critical, and if you have good coaches, and they know your situation, your life situation, and they're able to, funnel and tunnel you a little bit into what they think is the right direction. A lot of times, I mean, that's critical to being who you are, where you are, how you are. You know what I mean? As you grow up.
I agree 100%, because there were some fundamentals of life that I didn't know, but some coaches taught me that. I remember when I started playing Little League football, the first thing they asked me what position did I want to play. And I said, I want to play wide receiver. I said, yeah, I play wide receiver. I play running back. So the first thing they did is they put me with a coach. The reason why they put me with the coach, so he can teach me the fundamentals. So now if he teaches me the fundamentals, I'll get in the game and I'll know what to do. But just imagine if I didn't have a coach and I get in the game, I'm going to be lost and not play with no purpose. That's the same thing. We have coaches in our life to not just teach us the fundamentals of football, but they teach us the fundamentals of life. And that's the reason why I'm in coaching now, because now I get to take my experiences, my disappointments, my setbacks, to teach these same kids that you can overcome the situations in your life. Why? Because I'm going to teach you the fundamentals of not just playing football, but I'm going to teach you the fundamentals of how to overcome obstacles, how to overcome disappointments, how to look at your situation and say, you know what? Even though I'm not there, I'm still going to get there. So that's why I love coaching.
And so you played Pee Wee football in Mount Bello?
Yes, I played for the Mount Bello Falcons.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, did you know you had football ability?
When I was young, I played for, I don't know if you remember Laurie Air Force Base.
Mm-hmm.
I played with the Laurie Lobos.
Okay.
That's old. That was when I was in 2nd, 3rd grade. And I played pretty well. I knew that I had something special, and a lot of people could see something special, but it still needed to kind of be groomed. But I think I didn't really notice it until I think it was my senior year of high school. Okay. When Ben Gregory, he passed away. He was the head coach of Mount Bello, and he was telling me that different letters were coming in for me to get scholarships. I'm like, what's a scholarship? and I'm like, what is that? So then I knew that I could play this game when I was getting scholarship, and coaches were asking about it.
Yeah, and so all of a sudden, are any of these offers coming from schools in Colorado?
See, I'm gonna talk bad about Boulder. See,
they have to do it.
And I'm just kidding, but they came at the last minute when Ohio State, asked me to sign my letter of intent. Then that's when they kind of came at the last minute. But I was supposed to be where I was supposed to be. But there's a lot of teams that came at the last minute. One was CU and one was CSU. But I went to the Ohio State University.
And we always see when we go to the Pee Wee football games and whatnot, we see dads more and more nowadays. Right. But before it was moms. Mom said, "You gonna play? You gonna play? You gonna play, boy." you gonna play. And was it like that with you? Was mom's always there?
Yeah, she was always there. And I just loved playing football. But my mom did the reverse psychology because when I was growing up, I was a bad kid. I mean, I was awful. I mean, I'm yelling at teachers. I'm getting sent home because I was getting suspended. My mom would say this. She said, "Boy, if you don't, when she said, boy, you know you're in trouble. Boy, if you don't get yourself together, you are not playing football." I'm crying, "Mom, I'm gonna do better. I'm gonna do this," because I love playing football. So she used that to basically keep me on track. Because I'm gonna tell you something. If it wasn't for God using my mom and using football, I wouldn't be sitting here today because I was headed the wrong way.
Wow. And it takes getting older.
Yeah.
It takes getting older to understand the choices.
Yeah.
You know, choices and consequences, because you step one step this way, you never know, you know, where you're going to end up 10 years from now, 20 years from now. And it's critical to stay on point.
Yeah. Sometimes I wish I could rewind my life and do some things different.
We all do.
I wish I could but here's the good part about it is instead of getting bitter, I chose to get better. And the way I got better is investing in these kids, taking my DNA and injecting it with my same DNA. And that's what I want. That's why I love coaching. That's why I love coaching.
I love that. I love that.
Because I get a chance to tell the kids not all my accolades, but to tell them all the mistakes I made. So, you know, because the thing about it is the only way we're going to have real change is if we're real. I mean, they're going to know my accolades. Yeah, I broke I did some records at Ohio State. Yes, I got the record at Mount Bello. Yes, I got records in Colorado. But they want to know, man, can they identify with me? And the way you identify with them is meeting them where they're at. So, you know what? Chris Sanders blew it. Chris Sanders made some mistakes. Chris Sanders was going down the wrong way. But it took me listening to some coaches to get me on the right track.
And so we fast forward. You go to the Ohio State University, and what happens there? Are you the number one? Are you the number two?
Trials and tribulations got even intense, because when I was at Mount Bello, you know, I was kind of not doing my grades right, just kind of shucking and jiving. Actually, my grades were right, but I didn't take my ACT test, you know, really seriously, because at that time you need to have an 18 to qualify. So what happened was I got an 11 on my ACT, and you get 5 for just writing your name. No, you get 6 points for just writing your name. So I basically got 5 points on my ACT. So I get there to Ohio State. So number one, I had to sit out a year. Yeah. And then number two, I couldn't go to practice. I can go lift, but I couldn't have a locker. So I had to put my clothes by the coach's urinal. So now I got to look at that. I know that's kind of bad, but I had to look at that every day of this disappointment. So I go there. And every day I had to do that. Every day I was getting laughed at, all these things to where, like, man, this is not what college is all about. So then my second year, you know, I have a chance to play, and I play my first game and I catch one pass, and then all of a sudden I'm in practice. I hurt my knee. So now another year is done. But here's the great part about the whole situation. I called my mom that same year, and I started crying. I said, "Mama, I can't do this." I said, "I can't do this." You know how mamas are. She says, "Baby, it's going to be all right." I said, "Mom, how can it be all right when I was ineligible? Then all of a sudden I hurt my knee." Now check this out. That same year that I hurt my knee, I go out for track. And that's the same year I broke Jesse Owens' long jump record, 26.9. That was standing for 36 years.
Isn't that something?
So
just like that. Conversation with moms.
Conversation with moms. And then my third year, and going back to that Jesse Owens' long jump record, that year I was ranked number 3 in the world. So here's a kid that had 11 on his ACT. Here's a kid that had to put his clothes by the coach's urinal. Now all of a sudden is ranked 3rd in the world. 3rd in the world. 3rd in the world. I mean, you know, and it just baffles me. And that's how, you know, I know that, you know, I never look at a kid and say, you can't make it because you made mistakes. That's not true. I made a lot of mistakes. And then my third year, I'm in a starting role. So now I'm feeling really good. So now we're playing against the Louisville Cardinals. And I'm like ready to roll. I mean, the crowd is hyped. And I run a double move. I run like an out and up, and I'm all by myself. This is national TV. And I dropped the ball. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So now I'm like, Mom, I'm ready to come home. So I finished that year. So now my senior year, I'm like, I'm ready to roll and this and that. But the year before that, they asked me to do spring ball. And I said, I can't do spring ball because I'm ranked in the world in track. So now my senior year, I get ready for my first game, and they start a junior.
They started who?
They started a junior in front of me. So now I'm like, I'm done. I'm like, Mom, I'm coming home. I can't take it anymore. And she said, this is her exact words, baby, just hang in there. So now we're flying back from playing San Diego State. So I'm done. I mean, I'm saying, Mom, I can't do this anymore. So me and my roommate, Joey Galloway, he's on ESPN, and we're driving to practice, and there's a whole bunch of cameras that's kind of just there. And I'm like, what is going on? And he put his head down. I'm like, uh-oh, what is this about? He had to sit out for 2 games because he took money from a booster. So now I get inserted back into the starting lineup. But to remind you, my whole career, I haven't had a touchdown. So I haven't had a touchdown. All 4 years I haven't had a touchdown. So now we get against Houston, 1 touchdown. We get against Wisconsin, 2 touchdowns. We get against Purdue, 2 touchdowns. We go against some other teams, 2 touchdowns. So, man, that's why you can relate to these kids, because you can turn your obstacle into an opportunity. And that's exactly what happened.
You've got some great catchphrases for these young people to listen to. Yeah, and one of mine was I dropped the ball and the coach said, "Boy, invite it, don't fight it." And I said, okay, I got it. But I'm telling you, there's nothing like facing the adversity and then through all these different kind of things that all fit together in some mysterious way, all of a sudden, everything just clicks. And so it clicked for you senior year, but it still clicked.
Yeah, it's kind of like you ever have a puzzle and you take it out the box, it's a whole bunch of pieces. I mean, a whole bunch of pieces, but you're like, how is these pieces are going to look like the picture on the box? But the reason why it becomes that picture is because you start putting the piece together. That's the same thing in life. Sometimes your life look like it's just a whole bunch of pieces, but you're looking at this picture. But once you start putting different pieces together, now you get the picture. You get overcoming adversity, love, patience, all this stuff that you put together. Now you get the picture that you've been looking at.
So Chris Sanders graduates from Ohio State.
Yes.
And family?
Yes.
Comes next?
Yeah, I got 3 kids.
Okay. Family comes before the pros?
No. And actually, I had a child in high school when I was 18. Her name is Deja. And then when I got married, I had when my first year in the pros, and I have a son named CJ and Sierra.
Are they football kids?
Yeah, my son played at Notre Dame, and then also my son played in he played in 2 movies. He played in the Ray Charles movies. Ray Charles as a kid, and then he played in First Sunday with Ice Cube, and then he played in a couple of shows, Grey's Anatomy, Cold Case, and I think that's it.
And I can tell you're super proud.
Yes, I'm very proud. You see that dimple?
So now you graduate Ohio State. You
Yes.
get drafted. Do you get?
Yes.
How do you get to the pros?
I got drafted in the 3rd round, the 67th pick, and I went to the Houston Oilers / Tennessee Titans, and it was a moment. I mean, it was one of those surreal moments to where you've been through so many things, and your dreams seem like they're never going to get there. And this is a true story. I'll never forget this. I remember as a young kid, I would visualize myself catching a touchdown. I would throw this sock up, and I would visualize myself catching a touchdown. I'll fall, and I would do that for hours. When I got drafted, the 3rd game of the season, the same way I was holding my hands is the same way I caught my first touchdown against the Cincinnati Bengals. I have the picture in my office. The same way I was catching that sock was the same way that I caught my first touchdown against the Cincinnati Bengals.
And some coach down the way had probably told you practice makes perfect.
Practice makes perfect. Yes.
And so you go to the league.
Yes.
You have a good career.
I had a pretty good season. My first 3 years were pretty good, and then it kind of tapered down later on down the road. But my first year was amazing. I mean, I came in and I made the all-rookie team, and I led the league in yards per catch with 23.5. And only had like 35 catches and almost had 1,000 yards. That's how crazy it was. And I just came in with just an edge to where I'm gonna make this work. And I had all the odds against me once again. But see, the thing about it was the little league, high school, and college prepared me for the obstacles that I was about to face in the NFL. because they were saying, well, he'll get drafted, maybe he'll be on the practice squad or this and that. I said, wait a minute. I understand what you're saying, but I've been through some stuff. So what I did is I said, I'm going to go take a position, not in a cocky way. I'm going to go take it. And the reason why I'm going to go take it is because I worked hard for this. Everybody else has worked hard to understand it, which is great. But my dreams is in the way. I mean, I'm looking at my dreams right now. And I went out there and, I come in as a rookie with a bad haircut and, all this stuff looking kind of funny. But I put on my face mask, I put on my helmet, I put on my pads, and I was ready to get down. And here's the crazy part about it is I earned the respect of my teammates as a rookie, not just the offense, but the defense. Every time I would make a catch, they would run out on the field and just go crazy because I had an edge. And I said, you know what? Nothing's going to stop me from being what I want to be.
And you were the prototype wide receiver when you came out. I mean, you look like all the rest of those big, long-legged boys that run like crazy.
I'll go get it now. I jump over 5 people to go get it, but it was all groomed by what I went through when I was a kid.
And when you got drafted, we always see the kids sitting in the audience, and mom and dad, mom and kids, mom and brothers and sisters, everybody's there. What was your thought when you were sitting there? And your name is called, and irrespective of what position, 50th, 100th, 200th, what were you thinking about, and what were you thinking about your mom and all the things that she had told you over those years?
Ooh, it was incredible. I mean, it really, really was. And I remember we were sitting in North Carolina, and we was in Edenton, North Carolina. There's a house every mile. So there's nothing in Edenton, North Carolina. So it was me and my ex-wife at the time, or my girlfriend at the time.
And ain't nobody on the other side of you, but people you can't even see.
Yeah, exactly. It was just my mom and my girlfriend at the time. And I'll never forget it when they called my name. It was just kind of like surreal. And it's actually a funny story. Is how they walk up and they call you, they say your name. They walk up to the podium and they say your name. Okay, they were in the midst of a deep conversation, so they couldn't go to break and get the little paper and walk up on the podium. So they kept talking. So as I looked in the background, it said Chris Sanders. I'm like, Mom, they just picked me. She's like, boy, quit playing. She's like, don't be playing with me. Don't be playing with me like that. I said, Mom, they just picked me. Then all of a sudden at the bottom, it said current selection. It says Houston Oilers select Chris Sanders from The Ohio State University. My mom just sat in her chair and she started crying, and I'm jumping around and I'm getting excited. Then all of a sudden I get a call from Jeff Fisher, and Jeff Fisher talks like this, hey, ready to become an Oiler? I said, yeah, I'm ready to play. He said, get ready to come in here and get the job done. I said, yes, sir. Crying and yelling and screaming, and it was just a surreal moment. And I think one of the best moments I had too is, after I flew back from North Carolina, I walk in my apartment and I see Joey Galloway, because Joey Galloway got drafted by the Seattle Seahawks in the first round. And this is a guy who never shows reaction. He's just kind of like a straight line. He's just like whatever. And he's sitting there on the couch, and he's kind of like starting to cry a little bit. He said, "Man, we did it." He said, "We did it." And we hugged for about a minute. He was like, man, all the trials and tribulations we went through, we did it.
We did it. Yeah. So you played with a couple black quarterbacks in the league, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I played with Steve McNair. Oh, he was a hawk. Steve McNair, and I played with I think just Steve McNair. Yeah, that was it.
Okay. What was the reaction toward a black quarterback in the league when you came in? And I wonder what it is right now.
I think that the reaction, I didn't think I really saw any reaction. I just think that the hype when Steve McNair came in was so big that it really wasn't focused that he's a black quarterback. He came from Alcorn State, and he made some heroic comebacks in the games and all that stuff. That's all they kept talking about. So it wasn't really talked about, okay, there's a black quarterback coming in for the Houston Oilers, because before him was Warren Moon. So I don't think at that time it wasn't a big deal. I think the big deal was him coming from Alcorn State and getting drafted, the third pick of the draft. I think that's what the hoopla was about.
Right. And nowadays, I mean, there's still some teams, that kind of don't like black quarterbacks, even though the Broncos had Marlon Briscoe. He was the first black in the league.
And it shouldn't even be like that. It shouldn't even say, okay, he's a white quarterback or a black quarterback. They just need to be, he's a quarterback.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's just sad that our society is still like that. That we're looking at a person's ethnicity as opposed to looking at what they can do for your company. And I just think that it's not just in athletics, it's just all around this world. And the only way it's going to change is if hearts are changed, because if the hearts are changed, then the behavior is going to change. So
well, that and like they say, like I was in TV news for years and years, and I've never seen a black news director all the years I've been in the business. I know there's been 1 or 2 or 5 or 10, but I've never seen them. And so until you have somebody who is actually pulling the trigger and saying, hey, you know what, I'm just going to hire the best I can find.
Best.
I don't know. Maybe one day. We're getting older, but maybe one day. So now you play the league. How many years are you in the NFL?
I played 8 years. I played 8 years in the NFL.
And those are not easy years in the league.
Oh my God, they were hard. It was challenging. It was hard. It was brutal on your body. But this is what I signed up for. I mean, just when my first year in the league, I played in Houston. We had AstroTurf, and AstroTurf is like basically a rug. And then Cincinnati, and then Cleveland, all those teams, no, not Cleveland, Cincinnati and Pittsburgh had AstroTurf too. So just imagine we had 14 out of 16 games on turf. My body was beat up. I mean, my body was just, I'm like, man, I don't know if I can do this. So it was hard mentally, but it was hard physically, but it was something that I definitely wanted to do.
And you come out, and was Nashville your last team?
Yeah, I went to Cleveland for a second, Cleveland Browns. They're okay, but I went there, then I came back, then I retired as a Titan. I know y'all laughing at me because I got a Jacksonville Jaguar jersey back there.
That's all right.
And then on my left is I know we can't really see it, on my left is my Super Bowl jersey. And then I got a Cleveland Brown jersey. And then I have my Houston Nova jersey. But the only jersey I love is the Tennessee Titans. That's it.
There you go.
The reason why I got that Jaguars jersey is because they gave it to me for free.
Well, you come out and you decide instead of maybe coming home, you decide I'm gonna stick around where I've been playing and make my family and get going.
Yeah, I mean, I love it here. I mean, I love the people here, and actually,
you're in Nashville.
Nashville is booming really big. I mean, if you look at a couple of years ago when they had the NFL draft, there was over 600,000 people here. It was the second largest NFL draft. I mean, it was incredible. So it's really, really booming. But one of my dreams is I've always wanted to coach for the Denver Broncos. I've always wanted to coach for the Denver Broncos because, Denver's giving me a lot of things. Colorado's giving me a lot of things. And I want to give back to that, not just the organization, but give back to that state and that city of what they've given me. So I'm praying one day that I get a chance to do that. Because one of my guys that I went to school with, his name is Raymond Jackson. He actually works for the Denver Broncos as the head of player development. So giving back. So I definitely want to give back by what God has taught me.
Well, if we can talk to somebody, if we can talk to the coaching staff, we're gonna mention your name. And you want to do wide receivers?
I would love it.
Wide receivers?
I love coaching receivers. Love it.
So you're on your second high school stint down in Nashville.
Yes, I've been coaching for 15 years. And the reason why I love coaching high school, because you have to be a teacher. You have to teach. You can't just say, okay, you're fast and you can run a 4.2 or 4.3. No, it's a craft of running routes. That's why the greatest wide receivers in the game wasn't the fastest, is they understand how to set guys up. In the school that I work at, and now I work at a private school, we're not the biggest, we're not the fastest, but we're going to crush you on routes. We're going to make sure that our technique is totally sound.
And that's the deal right there. You've seen a little bit about what On the Gridiron and AYS On the Gridiron does, and Gridiron Sports, and what we're trying to do with our share and compare statistics. We're not trying to say this is the best kid in the country, or this is the best kid, or he's the best rusher, but we're just putting share and compare. These are the stats over here. These are the stats of these kids over here. And is that a good thing for coaches, for parents, for the players?
I think it's a good and a bad thing, because a lot of times, a lot of colleges are going to look at stats, but I want to know if this kid is coachable. We can have all the stats in the world, but if you're not coachable and you're not going to listen, then we're not going to get this job done.
Yeah.
If you have stats and you're coachable and you run a 4.2 and you run a 4.3, we tearing up the league. But if you have great stats but don't want to be coached, then we can't do anything. So I think there's a good thing about it. Stats mean that you produce, guaranteed you produce. But if you produce but don't have any character, then it's not going to work.
And having worked with kids for 15 years, knowing yourself and how you were as a youngster,
Exactly.
is it easy for you to figure out coachability, non-coachability?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I mean, I want the kids that I coach sometimes is everybody says that they're bad kids. I'm like, well, give them to me. Give them to me. And I'm gonna give you an example. There was a kid that I was coaching and everybody said he was bad, but he's a good athlete. I said, well, give him to me. So what I did is I said, his name is Tanner. I said, Tanner, meet me at 6 o'clock in the morning. And he said, okay. So he met me at 6 o'clock in the morning. He was standing on the track and I said these words. I said, when you step on this football field, that old Tanner is dead. This new one is gonna come alive. But I said, you gotta trust me. And he stepped on the football field and he said, Coach, that's all I wanted to hear is I just want to be accepted. And when he said that, he said, that's coachable. I ain't saying he's gonna do everything right. Yeah, he's gonna get an attitude. Yeah, he's gonna mess up, but he wants to. So he wanted to. Now I said this. I said, if you trust me, you're gonna be the best receiver to ever come out of here, and you're gonna become a great man. He said, Coach, I'm gonna give you my all. That's all I need. Now he graduated, and he's the best receiver to ever come out of there. Now he just got married. Now he's a manager of a bank.
And like you said, trials and tribulations. Again, there are so many pitfalls that await you as you take every step of the day. I mean, you never know what's around the next corner, and so being prepared and being of sound mind or whatever and body. I mean, that's not only critical, but just knowing, like you said, if you know you're not supposed to do something,
Right.
what do you tell young people? And I know you've talked a little bit about it, but what do you tell young people starting out their football careers, starting out just their lives? You know, what do you tell them about, somebody cares about you? Because that's what a lot of kids just don't even hear. You mentioned it a while ago. Somebody just say, you know what, I care about you.
Yeah.
You know?
The one thing I would say is trust the process. Trust the process. When a coach yells at you, trust the process. When it feels like you want to give up, trust the process. And because sometimes the process is not easy. And what it is when you have coaches in your life, they're molding you into the man or woman that you're called to be. So even though it's tough and even though it's hard, the couple of words I can say is just trust the process. You know, I remember somebody told me this when I was going through trials and tribulations. He said this. He said, he told me to repeat this. He says, I'm somewhere in the future and it looks better than it looks right now. So even though you're in the midst of what's going on now, your future is so bright. And it's going to be so bright, it's going to be blind in your eyes. So that's what I would tell the kids or whatever they're going through is trust the process.
Play Pee Wee football, don't play Pee Wee football. For kids.
I would say play. What's that?
I said, should kids play Pee Wee football? Not play Pee Wee football. Is there a certain kind of kid, or is it for everybody?
I mean, it could be for everybody. And football just isn't just a game. It teaches you life lessons. Because the life lessons is going to teach you that you're going to get hit and you're going to fall down. You got two choices, to lay there or get up. That's what life's going to do. Life's going to knock you down, but you got two choices, to lay there or get up. And then number two, I remember when I played football, I would have bumps and bruises and, a broken toe, a broken finger, but sometimes I had to play the game hurt. So sometimes in life, you're going to have to play life hurt. So it's teaching you life lessons. So that's why I say if everybody can play, not just football, but play a sport that makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because when you feel uncomfortable, that's when you grow. It taught my son, because my son, when he started playing football his first year, he played in California, and he was real tentative. I mean, real tentative. So he gets out there, and those kids in California are really hard. I mean, they rough, and they was putting his hands behind his back. He's in the line to do a drill, and they're pushing him. And I was getting ready to walk on the field and stop it, but it was like, oh, nope, let it go. He's got to learn. So when he came home, I said, son, when they put on the pads, you need to run through somebody's lips. And the first time he got on pads, wham, the guys that were bullying him, wham, just blast them. But the same kids that were bullying him, CJ earned their respect, and now they became best friends.
That's right.
Now they're talking to each other today, and he's in LA, and they're best friends.
That's
And
right.
you have to learn through football that you got to earn your respect. Nobody's going to give it to you.
No. Chris Sanders, that's life too. That ain't just football. That's life.
Exactly.
That's life, brother. Hey, Chris Sanders, one that got away, one that could have been a, who knows, for CSU, but hey, you did what you had to do, and you went to the Ohio State University. There was a question on Jeopardy the other day.
I saw that. I saw that. Yeah.
He said, "What was the school that used the?"
It's weird. I saw that.
My wife didn't know it. I said, "The Ohio State."
But you know what that is? Is they said it's because of branding. No, it wasn't. It was because we were on. It was in 1993 when they started doing interviews, and me, Joey Galloway, and Eddie George, we said the Ohio State University, and that's when everybody started saying it.
And now you see other people. They're the Syracuse University.
Oh, that don't sound right.
And other schools will do it. But hey, something like, and as you said, not only Joey Galloway, but Eddie George. Eddie George. They're still some of your best friends.
Oh, they are, and I watched him grow as men. I watched Eddie George. I think it was in 1992. We were playing against Illinois. And we talked because this whole interview we were talking about overcoming adversity. He fumbled 2 times against Illinois, and they picked him up the ball. They picked up the ball and they ran for a touchdown. And I'll never forget. He went to the dorm that night and he started crying. He was reading his Bible and he was crying. He's like, "Man, I don't even know if I can do this." And I looked at him. I said, "Man, quit tripping." I said, "One day you're gonna win the Heisman." 2 years later, that joker wins the Heisman.
That's all.
But if he didn't go through that moment, he never would have became the Eddie George that we see today. Why? Because football doesn't teach you about life; it prepares you for life.
Wow, there you go. See, that's another one. See, you got to write down a whole chart of those nice keywords that you use in your talks, because you're on the money, man. Hey, Chris Sanders, wonderful to talk to you, man.
Thank you so much.
I hope when you get back to D-Town, you look us all up and say hello. We'll go have a cocktail of some sort.
Sounds good.
And, we'll just have some fun. But yeah, man, continue the good work that you're doing out there in Nashville and turning out those young men and turning kids into young men. And that's what coaching's all about. I appreciate your time this morning, and you take care of yourself, my brother.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, man. You too. Thank you.
All right. That's Chris Sanders, who's doing his thing, Nashville, Tennessee. All right. That's AYS on the Gridiron. John Bowman, we'll see you again next time.
Secured. You're going to get it loose from the 24-yard line on first down. Throws and wide open for the touchdown. Chris Sanders.